In this week's Tesla news, they've updated their design studio recently and made significant changes to pricing and options for the Model S and Model X, seemingly streamlining them in anticipation of the upcoming Model 3 release. The 75 kilowatt-hour Model S, now Tesla's cheapest vehicle, has received a $7,500 price drop down to $69,500 US, just $1,500 more than the 60 kilowatt-hour version, which was recently discontinued. They've also added the all-glass roof, formerly a $1,500 add-on, and automatic rear power liftgate as standard equipment on the Model S. So the base model has become significantly a better value with these current updates. The 90D also received a $2,000 price cut. Tesla also released a few new Model X features, including new wheels and a new center console for the second row seats. The large price drop seems at first like it could irk buyers who ordered the 60 just before it was discontinued. But to keep them happy, Tesla has also dropped battery upgrade prices to stay relatively in sync with this price drop. The price of upgrading your 60 kilowatt-hour Model S battery to a 75 kilowatt-hour is now only $2,000. That's down from the previous $9,000. For those owners of an upgradable 70 kilowatt-hour Model S, the upgrade is just $500. That's down from $3,500 prior. Owners who are tempted to upgrade can access the new upgrade pricing by logging in to their My Tesla accounts. This should be a little revenue bump for Tesla too if owners are tempted into upgrading, and will ensure that the Model S's will end up with larger battery capacities than the coming Model 3s. For all you high-tech brewers out there, Pico Brew has a new, cheaper countertop beer brewing system. We've already talked about that here on your weekly tech update, but the company is now dipping its toes into distilling. The Pico Still is an add-on for the Pico Model C that turns that weird custom-designed keg into a countertop distillery. Basically, you clamp this crazy-looking contraption to the top of the C keg, and whatever you put inside it is vaporized, condensed, and purified. There's even an infusion basket on top, which is handy for creating hop oils, essential oils, and even gin. The Pico itself heats water to the desired temperature and feeds it through a copper coil inside the keg. Brewing is all about temperature control, and that's doubly true for distilling. The coil heats whatever you've put in the keg, be it water or some sort of mash for making spirits. The vacuum inside keeps the evaporation point lower than normal, and the lack of an open flame means there's very little risk of igniting the alcohol vapors and turning your kitchen into a nightmarish inferno. A small vial on top collects the heads or undesirable alcohol components that evaporate first, which include traces of acetone and methanol. So you get only the hearts in your collection vessel, in this case, a ball mason jar. Even if legally you can't distill your own whiskey because of local laws, Pico Brew still thinks you'll have a use for the Pico Still. Water chemistry can dramatically change the flavor of beer, so brewing with distilled water can create a more consistent product. It's also handy for creating hop oils, which aren't always available to home brewers and can be quite expensive. Hop oils let you quickly add a ton of hop character to a beer without worrying about introducing a bunch of particulate in the liquid itself. Perhaps the biggest selling point for Pico Still, though, is the price, so long as you jump on it during the Kickstarter campaign anyway. On its own, the add-on is $170 as a backer reward, but you can get the entire package with the Pico C for $499, even if it only makes beer and booze in very small batches. Well, I'm told that's a surprisingly good value. If you wait for the Pico Still to hit retail channels, though, it's going to set you back $349 all on its lonesome. In this week's VR news, there are all sorts of devices designed to make virtual worlds feel more real by mimicking physical situations. Full body suits, gloves, robotic hands, and exoskeletons. These products mimic sensations, but they don't create the realistic impression of spaces or structures like walls or doors. As adoption of AR and VR becomes more pervasive, being able to walk through walls won't seem like a neat trick. It'll be a significant limit to user experiences, jarring you out of a world that may otherwise seem realistic. But how do you create a virtual wall, a physical obstacle that you can touch and push against without using unwieldy mechanical hardware? For human-computer interaction, researcher Pedro Lopez, the answer lies beneath the skin. Lopez, along with others, created a simple wearable that uses electrical muscle stimulation, small electric shocks to directly deliver sensation to the user's muscles. It may seem a little odd, but it's similar to the type of stimulation received in physical therapy. Lopez and his team found that they could use the wearer's own muscles against them, artificially creating a counterforce or the feeling of resistance to a physical object by triggering the opposing muscles. The same setup can also enable the wearer to hold a large cube in virtual reality or press a virtual button while using only a small wearable device hooked up to electrodes that are stuck to the user's skin. The wearable setup includes up to 8 electrodes stuck to the forearm, bicep, tricep, and shoulder of each arm. The electrodes are then hooked up to a medical 8-channel muscle stimulator, which is controlled by the VR simulator. The entire thing can be worn in a small backpack and serves Lopez's research purposes, though he does note that he's not a product designer and envisions a much more streamlined design for a commercial version of the technology. A wearable that creates the impression of physical structures would let users explore a virtual world in a way that feels genuine. Instead of your fingers passing right through every virtual wall you encounter in a particular game, you'd feel solid barriers. Or if you're exploring a virtual world that included a hazardous design element, the world's designers could code the electrodes to fire, pushing your fingers away more forcefully. Others are working on similar ideas. The VR system TreeSense uses electrical muscle stimulation to create sensations akin to what it might be like to be a tree. Okay. The crowdfunded Tesla suit looks very cool, a full-body suit for haptics in VR. It uses electrical muscle stimulation as well, but Lopez points out that any technology that uses gloves or depends on mechanical components can actually inhibit feeling rather than completely enable it. Instead, Lopez imagines that electrical muscle stimulation in VR will manifest in thin wireless sleeves with electrodes embedded in textiles. There's a need for physicality in VR, and electrical muscle stimulation could make that a reality.